All right, listener, strap in because today's deep dive is going to be a wild one.
Uh-huh.
We're talking God versus Zeus.
A real clash of the titans.
Exactly. But before you picture lightning bolts and togas flying, let me clarify. We're not talking about an actual fight here.
Right, it's more of a thought experiment.
Yeah, like a philosophical showdown. We're interested in the ideas they represent, their different approaches to power.
That makes you think about how we define power in the first place.
Totally. Because on the one hand, you've got God, the creator of everything, all-powerful, often associated with love and justice, right?
The ultimate source of everything.
And then you have Zeus, king of the gods, but very much part of that world, throwing lightning bolts, more about strength and control.
Maintaining order, keeping those other gods in line.
It's a fascinating contrast. So imagine this cosmic chessboard, two incredibly powerful players, each with a totally different style. What happens next? What's the opening move in this godly showdown?
Well, Zeus, being Zeus, doesn't waste any time. He makes a grand entrance and, true to form, unleashes this massive thunderbolt.
Okay, I can practically hear the thunderclap. So Zeus is flexing his muscles, showing off his raw power. How does God respond to that?
That's where it gets really interesting, because God doesn't react the way you'd expect. No counterattack, no big pronouncements, just stillness. The thunderbolt, with all its energy, just dissipates as if it never happened.
Whoa, that's unexpected. It's like Zeus threw a punch and hit nothing.
Exactly. And that right there shows you the fundamental difference between them. Zeus's power is all about display, about imposing his will. God's power, at least in this scenario, is something else entirely. It just is.
Okay, so if I'm Zeus, I'm a little confused right now, maybe even a little threatened. This isn't how I'm used to things working.
Exactly. And that frustration is what drives his next move. He goes from trying to overpower God to questioning him directly.
And what does Zeus want to know?
He points to all the suffering in the world, all the pain, and asks, if you're so powerful, where were you when all this was happening? Why didn't you do anything?
Ouch, that's gotta sting. And it's a question a lot of us have probably asked ourselves at some point, right? When things are tough, it's easy to wonder why a higher power would allow it.
Absolutely. And it gets to the heart of their different approaches to, well, everything. Zeus is all about intervention. He sees his role as actively shaping and controlling things.
He's the king. He's used to giving orders.
Right. But God, at least in this depiction, seems to work in a more subtle way, allowing free will to play out, even if it leads to pain and suffering.
Okay, so we've got Zeus, the hands-on ruler, used to solving problems with the bolt of lightning. And then we have this depiction of God, much harder to grasp, less about immediate action, more about setting things in motion and trusting in a larger design. And neither one is backing down. So where do we go from here? Zeus has challenged God, thrown his best shot, and it just disappeared. What's a god to do?
Well, he's not one to back down from a challenge. And let's be honest, his pride must be a little bruised.
I mean, yeah. If I were Zeus, I'd be feeling a little insecure right about now.
So what does he do? He tries again, of course.
Oh, he does. He goes for round 2 with another lightning bolt.
You'd think so, right? But it's not really a lightning bolt this time. It's more like he tries to assert his will, to dominate, to force God to acknowledge his power.
What happens? Does the universe explode? Do angels start singing?
Nothing so dramatic. It's more like the universe just doesn't allow it. It's as if the very fabric of reality rejects the idea that Zeus could harm or overpower God.
That's wild. It's like trying to punch water or yell at a mountain. You're not going to move anything.
Exactly. Zeus's power, it's impressive, sure, but it's still bound by the laws of nature. God, in this scenario, seems to embody those laws.
So how does Zeus react to that?
I imagine a range of emotions: confusion, frustration, maybe even a hint of fear.
He's never experienced anything like this before, right?
Never. He's the king of the gods, used to being the most powerful being in existence. And now he's facing something he can't control, something he doesn't even understand.
That must be a humbling experience.
To say the least.
Yeah.
I think this is where the real thought experiment begins, because Zeus is forced to confront the limits of his own understanding.
He's always defined power as strength, control, action.
Exactly. But here, he's encountering something completely different, a power that doesn't need to be wielded because it simply is.
That's a tough concept to grasp, even for a god. So what now? Does Zeus just give up, admit defeat?
Well, he's not one to give up easily. But I think this experience, it changes him, forces him to ask a question he might never have considered before.
And what's that?
What is God? Not just who, but what. What is the nature of this being, of this power that defies all his expectations? It's a question that has haunted humanity for centuries.
And one that probably doesn't have an easy answer.
No, not at all. But sometimes the act of asking the question, of wrestling with the mystery, is more important than finding a neat and tidy answer.
So Zeus is left with more questions than answers. His thunderbolts are useless, his power challenged. He's been forced to confront the possibility that everything he thought he knew about power was wrong. What an incredible image. So we're left with Zeus, humbled, confused, maybe even a little scared. He's seen the limits of his own power. What happens next? Does he hang up his lightning bolts and call it a day?
I doubt he'd give up that easily. He's Zeus, after all.
Yeah.
But I think this encounter changes his perspective.
Yeah, he can't just unsee what he's seen, right? He's come face to face with something completely outside his understanding of how the universe works.
Exactly. He spent his entire existence believing that power is about control, about action, about imposing your will on the world.
And now he's seeing a different kind of power. One that doesn't need to prove anything, that doesn't need to be wielded because it just is.
It's a lot to process, even for a god.
So what does he do with that? How does a god like Zeus reconcile his own very hands-on approach to power with this other way of being?
I don't think he necessarily abandons his old ways. He's still Zeus, the king, the one used to calling the shots. But I think this encounter opens his eyes to another possibility.
Like maybe there's more than one way to influence the world.
Right. Maybe it's not always about thunder and lightning. Maybe sometimes it's about the quiet, the stillness after the storm.
About inspiring instead of commanding.
Exactly. And I think that's a powerful idea even for us mere mortals. We tend to think of leadership in those very Zeus-like terms, right? The strong man, the one who gives the orders.
The one with the loudest voice, the biggest lightning bolt.
Right. But what if there's another way? What if true leadership sometimes means stepping back, trusting in something larger than yourself, guiding instead of dictating?
It's a very different way of looking at things. And maybe, just maybe, it's something Zeus starts to grasp, at least a little, after this encounter.
It might not change him overnight, but it plants a seed, a new idea about what power can be, about what leadership can look like.
And that's where we'll leave this epic showdown, listener, with Zeus, hopefully a little wiser, a little more open to the mystery of it all, and with us challenged to consider those different approaches to power in our own lives.
To ask ourselves, what does it mean to wield power, not just in the grand cosmic sense, but in our everyday interactions?
Are we always trying to control, to command, to be the loudest voice in the room, or is there space for something more?
Something quieter, more inspiring, more in tune with that stillness after the storm.
Something to ponder, listener. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those big questions, and who knows, maybe you'll even find yourself face to face with your own personal Zeus, or maybe even